As I finally clean up the rest of my summer garden to gear up for my fall and winter garden, I can't help but think of how bummed I was about the garden this year. Yes, I did have some successes and I did have some pretty good harvests. And even though I still have some plants that made it into November, I really felt like this year didn't go as well, at least compared to previous years. It is disappointing, and I know I made some mistakes, but then there were also some things that were out of my control. So I know I can't be too hard on myself. But either way, lessons can be learned. The first thing that was really disappointing was my peppers. I did have some plants overwinter from previous years, but they didn't end up performing well. And then the new pepper plants that I started for the season, I think I started too early. I used to say that starting peppers as early as December was beneficial because of how long they take to grow. But I think now my climate isn't as warm as it used to be, and so our winter was colder than usual. So I think many of those plants got stunted and then performed poorly. And then, of course, some did get dug up by raccoons, and that was a battle, and some got dug up multiple times, which ended up killing a few of the plants. And that was something I really couldn't control. Then, on the other end of the spectrum of the timing of starting seeds, my loofah this year did not pan out well. Despite loofah taking a long time to grow, I decided to start them a little later this year because they also need lots of warm temperatures. I believe I started them in late March or early April, and I was confident they would grow quicker as it warmed up, but they never really did because I think I planted them too late this year. So I think next year I'll start them in February and keep them nice and warm inside, even if it means I have to have large containers of loofah plants indoors for a while. I did have a few nice flushes of tomatoes, but the weather this summer was very inconsistent and it wasn't as warm as previous summers, so I really didn't get as many tomatoes as I would have hoped. And some plants just didn't really perform well. And in terms of fertilization or what was in my soil, nothing had changed other than the weather. So it was one of those things where I really couldn't control the outcome. But I think this will encourage me to perhaps grow more dwarf varieties in containers that can be brought indoors or even be moved around to areas that get more sun in the garden if we happen to have a stretch of colder days. I also did have some tomato plants die off much sooner than usual, and initially I thought they just couldn't thrive with the inconsistent temperatures we had, but I also did see pill bugs at the base of those plants a few weeks prior to their demise, and I removed the pill bugs and tried to protect the plants from further damage from them, which you can see on this stem, but ultimately, I think because of the exposure on the stems from the pill bugs gnawing away, that was what caused them to die. So, to those people who keep telling me that pill bugs aren't a problem, they are. My flowers this year were kind of lacking, I felt. My California poppies in the front yard did do very well, and I did have some volunteer nasturtiums put on a nice display, but most of the flowers that I started from seed just did not want to grow properly, particularly my violas and cosmos and some of the other poppy varieties that I grew, and I'm not sure what happened. Some of the seeds may have been very old, so the germination rates might not have been very good, but even the seeds that did germinate, the plants weren't strong and many never even bloomed, so the seeds may not have come from strong plants. I think something to try next year is starting them earlier. I plan to sow every seed from all of my older packets as well as just buy some fresh new seeds. And if I feel like I can't get strong plants from sowing seeds, I think I might be better off buying some starts of those flowers at a nursery and hope they turn into strong plants that will reseed themselves. Because many times in my experience, volunteers tend to do better than seeds that I sow. I try to not buy starts of things that I have seeds for, but if the seeds aren't working or if I end up not getting any to germinate in a timely manner, then I'll end up with fewer flowers, and I would rather spend the money to have more flowers than hardly any at all. My green beans were a disaster this year, and they were another thing severely affected by the raccoons that kept digging them up. I had to just admit defeat, and I didn't want to keep sowing seeds or transplanting them in the same spot because the raccoons frequented certain areas. So the only other place I had space for them was in my raised bed in the front yard, but they got so much sun and got scorched and didn't really grow. While this year's summer garden didn't go exactly as planned, I am still thankful for what I was able to grow, and each season I learn or realize something new. And with the changing climate, I think I just need to accept the fact that things are going to be different each year. And as I mentioned earlier, I can adapt to the things that I can control and just roll with the punches on what I can't. And now with the summer garden finally mostly cleared, I do have a blank space to try and do some late fall and winter gardening, which is always easier to maintain than the summer garden. So even if I am a little late to the party, there's still a lot of potential for my garden, and maybe my fall and winter garden will help make up for this year's summer garden.